Hello everyone, it's the Mark Avenue, I'm Eric. Top Thrill Dragster versus Kingda. A very common roller coaster debate. They are the two tallest roller coasters in the world. One of them, Top Thrill Dragster, is gone. And since we're probably getting a reimagined version, we won't be able to talk about Top Thrill Dragster versus Kingda in the same way anymore. So, let's talk about it one more time. I'll be discussing in very great detail my thoughts on each ride in a bunch of different categories. It's not going to be a scoring system. I will be saying which one's better in each regard, but I don't think a scoring system is quite appropriate here. I will say which one I think is the better ride overall, but let's just say they're one spot apart in my rankings. Both were and are extraordinary rides, depending on which one we're referring to. I love both of them, loved both of them, depends on what we're talking about. Let's pretend for sake of this they're both still open. And let's compare the two, starting with the most important feature, the launch. The launch on these two rides, while technically being the same hydraulic launch system and all, do not give you the same experience in your body, in my opinion. I feel that Top Thrill Dragster's launch is more sudden, whereas Kingda's is more gradual in its build-up of speed. However, Kingda seems to build up a greater amount of speed and intensity in a way that makes the launch feel much more powerful. So even though Dragster's launch is a bit more gut-wrenching because of how quick the acceleration seems, I think overall, the launch on Kingda is better. But there are some other aspects of the launch that I should be discussing that go into separate categories. It's impossible to perfectly separate every category, but let's go into a different aspect leading up to that launch. The anticipation. Anticipating what's going to happen before a roller coaster, whether it be hitting the crest of that first drop or waiting for the launch to happen, it can be the scariest part of a ride. In fact, it almost always is. And Top Thrill Dragster nails this. It's hard to explain. Something about the racing noises and seeing the traffic light where you know when you're going to go. And yet, when it happens, you're shocked. You're pushed to the back of your seat and you weren't expecting it. Top Thrill Dragster's anticipation is one of the best things about its launch. Kingda does not quite have this. It lacks that same high energy beginning, and the launch, because it's more gradual, you can kind of tell when it's coming in a way you really can't on Dragster. So for anticipating the launch, getting ready for that big moment, Top Thrill Dragster is better. Now let's talk about that sense of speed that comes with the launch. This is pretty much a tie. Top Thrill Dragster seems to have greater speed consistently, but Kingda seems to build up a overall higher speed by the end. So whether you prefer the consistent speed for most of the launch up to the hill, or gradually getting to a greater point, that's up to you. This one I think I will probably leave as a tie. But the one other aspect of the launch that might give one the edge is the intensity. Kingda absolutely pushes you into the back of your seat. Dragster does too, but I think Kingda does it more. And I feel like that is one of the biggest strengths of the ride. It is an intense experience. The forces are some of the strongest I've had on any roller coaster, and while Dragster's not too far behind, is noticeable enough for me that I do think Kingda is a more intense experience that allows the launch to be overall better. But there is more to just the ride than the launch. You have that massive hill, 420 feet, 456 feet tall, depending on which one you're on. So let's talk about that. Which of those hills provides the better airtime? Airtime is not the main focus of these rides. You don't crest the hill at a particularly high speed. You're not covering a ton of distance during it. But you are thrown out of your seat a little bit. And I feel that it's not distinguishable on these two rides. The intensity is, the airtime is not. So this one, I'll give a tie. Now for the sense of height itself though. As you get to that top of the hill, this is also a tough one to distinguish because even though Kingda is 36 feet taller, the locations of both these rides, you don't quite get that sense of, wow, I'm towering over everything in a way that separates one from the other. In both of them, you are towering over stuff, and it's crazy. You aren't up there to savor the moment too much. I think that's also pretty much the same in terms of the duration up there. So I'm going to give the sense of height a tie between these two. On the note of duration, the ride's length. Which one feels like a longer experience and not boring, because neither of these are more than basically 30 seconds. So of course, no matter what you ride, you're not going to feel like, is this over yet? Are we done yet? But this one is quite distinguishable because Kingda feels and is twice as long in duration. Dragster is under 15 seconds. Kingda, to my understanding, is around 30. And you can feel that. It feels like a full roller coaster experience. Honestly, I'd say because of the intensity to an extent, this ride feels just as long in duration as Orion at King's Island, from top of Lift Hill to end of ride. It does not feel like a short experience. Dragster does, to a greater extent at least, so I do think Kingda is definitely getting the points for feeling like a more complete ride experience. Part of that relates to that sort of airtime hill it has, that does provide some good sustained floater even with the restraints. On the note of restraints, this one I have to give to Top Thrill Dragster. No one's gonna be surprised about this. Everyone complains about Kingda's restraints. They are not bad. I'd say 1 out of 5 rides you might get a little crush on the thighs, but these shoulder pads are not uncomfortable. The ride is fine. The restraints are not inhibiting you from enjoying it, or they shouldn't be. They're not inhibiting me from enjoying it, so if they are for you, that is unfortunate, but I think the restraints are acceptable. Even though the lap bar does work better for Top Thrill Dragster because you feel more open to the elements, I can totally understand why they felt the need to add more restraints. It was probably a law, but either way, while Top Thrill Dragster's restraints are better for feeling a more thrilling experience, this one's not one where it's like one's good, one's bad. One is good, the other is great. Now the other thing that everyone jumps to in saying Top Thrill Dragster is better, smoothness. This one I will give to Top Thrill Dragster, but it is a way smaller margin than restraints, for example. Kingda is not rough. At all. I've ridden in multiple rows. I do not ever have a particularly rattly experience. I've had moments that are a bit janky, whereas Top Thrill Dragster is more consistently smooth, and that's why it gets to the point. But there are moments, and I don't think it's too fair to say, I got rattled once on one of my 4 rides on Kingda, therefore it's rough and Dragster smooth. Because it's important to note that there are plenty of smooth, quote-unquote, rides out there where I've had some bumpiness. I hear people say Ghost Rider at Knott's Berry Farm is one of the smoothest wooden coasters out there. I got rattled pretty much the whole time. I think it's a great ride, though. The roughness does not take away from Kingda. If anything, there are times where roughness can add to it because of that great intensity. So while Dragster is getting this point, I don't want it to get to the Dragster fans' heads. Now let's discuss some things that do add to the overall experience, even if they do not necessarily relate to the rides themselves. First off, the theming. Theming is small and minimal on both, but I do think Top Thrill Dragster's theme lends to the ride much more. A racing theme is an easy way to go about making a very fast ride. And between having the stands for people to watch, the color scheme, the finish line, the lights going green when you start, everything about it really works with the theme, and I think it's masterfully done. Kingda's theme is harder to pinpoint. It does fit in its area very well. That said, it doesn't quite lend itself to the ride as well, where you don't really understand what the idea of going fast through the jungle is. But it's not awful, it's just that Dragster definitely is better in this regard. On a similar note, the setting of the ride. What's better? Going by a busy midway with the people watching, themed to that cool Formula racing idea? Or being in a remote bamboo-filled jungle type area where you can't see anyone and they can't see you? I prefer Kingda for this. I think that setting feeling separate from the rest of the park adds to the experience a lot. It does actually help that anticipation factor a bit more than if this were just kind of on a main midway. So I really like that, and I feel like the setting is honestly a pretty major strength of Kingda, where sometimes on Dragster or other big thrilling rides, people can watch you launch. Here, it's just your car. There are people behind you, but you can't look back. There's no looking back after getting on Kingda. So I think that setting is a major plus of Kingda, and one of the best things outside of the main ride experience. Now for the queue, the queues of both have their strengths and weaknesses. I like walking through the structure of Dragster. You're in the middle of it. That's really fun. And then Kingda has that build up to the very remote bamboo jungle, because you can't see a whole lot going on when you're going up to the queue. I like that. I think overall the queues are similar, so I'll give that one a tie as well. What else can we discuss? In general, I think my overall thoughts are, both rides are extraordinary, of course. Both have wonderful launches that are great in their own ways, even if they are the same type of launch. And they are definitely not one ride is taller and faster than the other, or one ride is smoother and is better than Restraints than the other. They are very different in their own ways. They are great in their own ways. They can be improved. I think the ultimate roller coaster combining the two would have the intensity of Kingda and somehow the build-up, but still have that sudden launch. I think that would defy physics, but who knows? Maybe the new Thrill Dragster will bring that to us. For now, I prefer Kingda out of these two. I have mentioned that in the past before, once or twice. I do stand by it. I think Kingda is just more intense, and it speaks to me more as a thrilling experience, even though Dragster's anticipation, speed, and smoothness are definitely worth noting. Just not in the sense that they're drastically better, just because one's at Cedar Fair and one's at Six Flags. I love both rides, and I'm curious to see how this debate will change when the new Thrill Dragster arrives. Thanks for watching, hope you enjoyed this video, comment down below your thoughts on this debate, subscribe for more theme park content, I'll see you next time.